Alright, hi everyone, this is Matt taking over for Gary to do part 2 of this series on how to create a character for the Guild Living campaign. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, which Gary did very well, check the description, I will link it below, and that will show you how to set up a Mythweaver sheet with everything you need to know about your character, and it'll lead you through the first steps of doing this. So, where we left off, we're here in the Guild Living campaign, and we are working our way through the new player checklist. And so far you guys have done about steps 1 to 12, which deal with 4E character creation. Okay, so now we have to put everything, we have to translate this Mythweaver sheet that you've made into a Roll20 sheet. A Roll20 journal entry is what we call it. And this is so everyone, all of the DMs can see your stuff really easily. You'll be able to roll powers in seconds, and everything is going to be very organized and together. So you can play, when you play a game, everything is very streamlined and very effective for all the players to work through. So far you guys should have done about part 1 to 13, where you posted your character in the new character thread, right? And then someone will come along and give you suggestions about it, and will make you a journal entry in Roll20. And you'll hopefully have added it to the guild census as well. So once you've incorporated all of the changes that one of the GMs says you need to do, they will give you a journal entry. So to find your journal entry, what you need to do is you go to the campaign homepage and you click this Join Game button here. Alright, this Join Game button will open up the actual table where the game takes place. Right? And so this is what you will see when you enter it. Right? You'll see various tokens of various characters that people have scattered about. You'll see the guild hall, which is currently empty because all the characters are over doing stuff, and you'll see the stables where they have all of their mounts and things like that. Right? So this is what you'll see when you join the table first thing. And this is sort of the default thing when an adventure is not going on. You'll also see listed at the bottom all the people's names, okay, who are currently at the table with you. And so you can talk to these people by saying something in this chat box and just hitting enter. Okay, easy enough. So these, okay, so these, this is the basic format of Roll20. Okay, you have a table and you have a chat box off to the side. In this chat box, you can do all sorts of things. So first thing you might want to do before you start trying things out is you want to type in / talk to myself. Right? And what that does, talk to yourself, sorry. Let's try that again, this time spelling it. There we go. And so now it'll say you are now talking to yourself. Chat messages and dice rolls will not be broadcast to others. So if I say something that tells someone to pay attention to me, they can't read any of this. Alright, so all these other people can't read what's going on. So that's the first thing you do when you're just messing around. This chat box isn't just a chat box, it's also a calculator and a random number generator. So say I want it to simulate rolling a d20, I can type in /roll 1d20. Okay, and it will give me a random number. And I can do that again, and it'll give me a different result as if I were rolling a d20. Okay, so it's an easy random number generator, but it's also a very good calculator. So say you want to make an attack roll, and you roll a d20 for your attack roll, and your attack bonus is 12, right? Then you can say roll d20 plus 12, and it will roll that for you and add that to it. So your attack roll, the total would be an 18. And so when you do this sort of thing in Roll20, it's really nice because you can roll 60 12, and it will add it all up for you, if you can spell correctly. Okay, and it'll add it all up for you, okay? You roll 60, 12, and you get 53. So you don't need to roll every single die every single time and then add it up. It can do complex die rolls and mathematics without any real interference from you. We do not often use the /roll syntax because it's very clunky. As you can see, it takes up a large chunk of my chat box, so it's a bit of a mess. What we do use are what are called inline rolls, and it's exactly the same as the /roll, but instead of writing /roll, you put double square brackets, and then you type what you want to calculate or roll inside, and then it will print it out as a very small number. Right? So I rolled a d20 and the result is an 11. Okay? And I can do that a whole bunch of times, and these rolls are nice and compact, so we can very easily fit many of them into a chat box. So you can easily see what everyone is attack and what everyone's damage rolls are. So we will use these inline rolls. So anytime you want to do a calculation, and these can do straight calculations too, if you want to add 2 plus 7, it will do that for you. Anytime you want to do that, you want to put it in double square brackets, just like that. Right. So that's sort of the basics of how to use Roll20. You can also do something else in the chat box where you emote something, and to do that you type in /me, and then /me says something funny. Right. And it will show it as you are doing that action. So Matt W says something funny. All right. So it'll show it in orange text as you doing that action. So this is useful if you want to say, I make an attack and roll d20. Okay. This is a way to emote, to show your character as doing something in the chat box. And these are the most important commands that you have. So you can do it as normal text, you can do it as emoting, or you can do it as a die roll inside the double brackets. Right? So those are the basics of using Roll20. What we do is we have you do a lot of the setup part of it well in advance. And this saves so much time if everyone has everything set up for their character already. So what we require you to do, okay, once you've posted your character, and here we go, here's the character that Gary made, it's example, this Dragonborn Paladin. And he's got all of his powers, he's got all of his items, he's got all of his feats and his racial features and things like that. All of his other items are in here, and he has a little background and says what you say about him. Okay, great. So he's ready to go. So once that's been okayed, next you have to fill out a journal entry, and your DM will give you a journal entry. And to access your journal entry, you go into this little journal tab here in Roll20, so you can no longer see the chat window, and look under player characters for something. Usually, if you're very new, it will be named something like new player, or it'll have your name next to it. If you already have characters, you'll see all of your characters here. So click on this new character, and it'll open up this big sheet. So the first thing you see is the name, bio, and info, and it says to post the Mythweaver's link here. This is very important. This way we can find your sheet very easily when we're in-game. So what you want to do is go to Edit, and you want to put in your Mythweaver sheet. So go to your Mythweaver sheet, copy, paste, hit enter so it links, and then change the name while you're at it. So let's call this example, okay? Since that was the really exciting name that Gary came up with. Alright, so now we have our Mythweaver's link that we can click on at any time if we need to see the sheet. We have the name up top. There's also another tab that says Attributes and Abilities, and this is where the bulk of your effort will be put in to Roll20 just in your character creation step. So on the left-hand side, what we see are attributes, and many of these should look very familiar. You'll see Strength, Con, Dex, Int, Wisdom, Charisma, AC, Fortitude, Reflex, etc., all the way down. And on the right-hand side, you'll see abilities. And you'll see some things you should be familiar with, like Second Wind, rolling initiative, rolling a saving throw, doing a skill check, all of these things. So, in addition, you'll see a couple other things. And we'll talk about abilities more in a little bit. The first thing you need to do when you get your journal is to fill in your attributes with the numbers from your Mythweaver's sheet. So, this is pretty straightforward. For your normal ability scores, what you do is you put the mod in the left-hand column and you put the score in the right-hand column, just like it says. So if we take a look at this, scroll back up to the top, here we go. Here we have our scores, and over here we have our mods. So our strength mod is 4, and our strength score is 19. So 4 here, 19 here. Good, easy enough. Con plus 1 with a score of 12, so 1 and 12. Okay. Dex is 0 with a score of 10. and sometimes this can be a little finicky when you're trying to fill this out. Int is -1 with a score of 8. Wisdom is +1 with a score of 12, 1, and Charisma is +4 with a score of 19. Alright. Then, next thing you have to do is your defenses, which are right here. Alright, so Gary has already added in all of his enhancement bonuses and his class bonuses and his armor and abilities, so everything is good to go. So all you have to do is copy this now. 23, 19, 17, 19. So 23, 19, 17, 19. Okay. Hit points. How many total hit points can we have? 51, and since I haven't hit him yet, we say he has 51 out of 51. How many healing surges can he have? Well, he can have 11 total. I'm going to move this over so it's easier to work with. Okay, he can have 11 total, and he hasn't used any, so he currently has 11 out of 11. His surge value, right here, under healing surge, is 13. Temporary hit points, he doesn't have any powers that get temporary hit points, so we'll say he is 0 out of 15, let's say. His half level, so his level is 5. In Dungeons & Dragons, whenever you divide, you always round down. So you can see half level in various places, say here, okay, if you ever can't divide by 2 and round down. 5 divided by 2 is 2.5, round that down to 2, so his half level is 2. Multiplier is 1 until you start trying to get into sessions, so don't worry about that. And PP and PI here down at the bottom stand for passive perception and passive insight, which are under your senses section. So examples, this guy's passive perception is 13, his passive insight is 13. So 13 here and 13 here. And that's it. You filled out your attributes really easily. Obviously, you will have to keep these up to date so that you can reference them and so that the DMs and the other players can reference them too. If you find that you want to add more of these, okay, if you want to add an attribute or something like that, it's very easy. You press the Add button. And once you do that, something will come up at the bottom, and it's called Untitled. Say you really need to keep track of something. Say the number of ducks you have saved, okay, in the course of your heroic career. Maybe this guy loves ducks, and he wants to keep track of how many he's saved. All right, you can say, all right, well, I have saved 4 out of 5 ducks so far, and that's very important for my character. So you can add whatever you feel like to this thing, as much as you want, and usually, as you get the hang of it, you will add some of your own macros, or you will add some of your own attributes to become familiar with it. So that's the basics of setting up the attributes part of your journal. So the harder part of doing this is setting up your abilities. Right? And to do this, you need to put your macros into the abilities section. There are several guides that I have written for how to do macros. The first of these, if you are unfamiliar with it, is called Macros: The Absolute Basics. You can find this on the campaign forum. I believe this is linked. Yes, this is linked in step 14. And there is another macro guide for more advanced usage once you get used to things called Matt's Guide to Great Macros, which I strongly recommend you read once you get a good handle on Roll20. So some really solid resources that I and the other GMs have written up for you. And so this post, Macros: The Absolute Basic, covers a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about now. So when you're going to do the macros, we want you to put them in here. That way all the GMs can see them, and they'll show up as token action on it. Okay. Theoretically, you could also put macros from Roll20 into the Settings tab, and you could add macros here, but we would prefer you didn't do that, because it makes it harder for us to find them. So here's where we're going to put all of our macros. And macros are just little pieces of code that are displayed in the chat that are pre-written. So anytime you want to do something, say I want to use my second wind, right? This macro, if I click on it and tell it to roll, it will automatically just put this text and as if I had typed it in this box. So if I say OK, and I roll this text, it'll say, I've used my second wind, I gained 13 hit points, and I gain a +2 bonus to defenses until the start of my turn. Alright. So these are very, very handy because they are instantly usable reference points for any of the abilities and powers and things you can do. All of these magic items may have things that they can do that are special. You have many powers and features from your class and from your race. Um, and so when you make a macro of it, what you're doing is you're making a really quick reference that will do all of the math and all of the work for you, so you can focus on your role-playing more. And so that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of this little tutorial. So we've given you a little bit of a head start in that we've given you a template for your attacks to use for macros. That's just very straightforward, and you can use it and just pull the numbers from your Mythweaver sheet as if you feel like it. So let's get started on that. I want to play is what you roll when you want to get into a session and you're competing with other players to get into a session, so we'll leave that alone for now. Second wind is pretty good by itself as well. So let's look at the initiative one. To edit one of these macros, you click the little pen button off to the right, and that opens it up. So you can change the name of the macro. Say you don't want to say initiative, say you just want to say init, that's fine. Okay, and then you can save it, and it'll have changed it. Right? You must save the macros, or else they will not save. If you leave this open and then quit the game, it won't save any of the changes you made. So please be aware of that. So if we look at this, it says /me prepares for battle, and then it rolls a 1d20 and says, in parentheses, your initiative bonus here. Okay, well, having this block of text in here is not good, so let's look up what our initiative bonus is. So if we look at our character sheet, and we scroll down to where it says initiative, look here, it says our initiative bonus is +6. So let's get rid of the plus your initiative bonus here and just put 6. Leave the N tracker in there because that will let the GM keep track of the initiative rather than having to write all the names down in order. Right? So there we go. We have a 1d20 plus 6, and we have the little tracker in there, and then we save that. And that's it. That's all you have to do for the initiative. Likewise, you have saving throws. By default, saving throw is a 1d20. Okay. If you have any bonuses to it, say you have a feat that gives you a +2 bonus to saving throws, you could type in +2 here. If you have conditional bonuses to saving throws, then you can list that underneath. Or say, in parentheses, and say, +2 bonus to saving throws, versus fear. And you'll try to spell the words correctly. Right. So, and you can list that in there. Our character, let's check his conditional bonuses. He gets a +1 bonus to attack rolls when he's bloodied. So that doesn't have anything to do with saving throws. So let's get rid of that. So save this again. Skill check macro. This is very straightforward. There are several different ways that you can do skill checks, which are covered in one of the guides to macros. I think down at the bottom of this page, it says how to do skill checks. The easiest way is that you just create a list of your primary skill bonuses under a d20 roll. So for instance, let's look at this. What do we have the highest skill bonus in? Looks like we have a +13 in Intimidate. So we'll probably use that. Let's list that first. +13 Intimidate. Right. How about next? We have a +11 to Diplomacy. Wow, we're really talkative people. Okay. How about next? We have a +6 to Bluff, a +6 to Religion, and a +6 to Streetwise. So we can just type out +6 Religion, Bluff, Streetwise. And that'll cover most of our basic skills. We probably don't need to list off that we have a -2 to Stealth. If we're a big clunky paladin in plate armor and we're trying to be stealthy, something has gone horribly wrong. So we won't worry too much about that. So just put your main skills down here, okay, and save it. And if you try and roll this, then what it'll say is, you have made a skill check, here's the roll, and then here are your modifiers to it. So the DM can easily see this and say, okay, you're trying to do an Intimidate check, you rolled a 7, +13, okay, that's 20. There are many different ways to do these skill checks so that they're more automated than this, but this is just a very basic get yourself set up kind of way. So let's talk about two more things. The first thing that I want to talk about is the fact that it says Matt makes a skill check. You know, that's fine, okay? But when I'm role-playing, I'm not Matt, okay? I'm Example Man, or whoever the heck this guy is. Alright, so one way you can change it so that it doesn't look like you're this nerdy guy who's making a skill check, you can click this drop-down menu under the chat thing and change it to your name. And so, if I roll this macro now, it will say, Example makes a skill check. That's a terrible name. We're going to change that. he is now example man with an exclamation point. Okay. So here we go. Now I can make a saving throw, something like that, and it'll show up as if the character is doing it. And that's what we want to do. We want to get you immersed in this role-playing experience. Alright, so the second thing I want to talk about is making attack and utility macros. So these are going to be the bulk of the work that you have to do in setting up your character on Roll20, is making your attack and utility macros. So you'll notice if you look at this character that he has a bunch of powers. It looks like he's got 11 different powers here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, yes. 11 different powers, not including anything that his magic items could do. And so what you should do is you should try and make a macro that summarizes what that power does and makes any rolls that it needs to make for every single one of your powers. So let's look at this. First, we give you a basic melee thing, which you need to adjust to your own standards. So if we look at this, it says basic melee improvised, at will standard, melee weapon, melee 1 creature. This has all the information about the attack that it needs. Okay, is it at will? Is it an encounter power? Is it a daily power? What kind of action does it take? Is it a standard, a move, or a minor? What is the range of this? Is it a melee weapon? Is it a ranged weapon? Is this, a burst or something? And how many targets does it have? And then it has the actual rolls. You make a basic attack and rolls 1d20 plus attack bonus versus AC. If it hits, it deals a certain amount of damage. So these numbers you now need to correct and make them right for your character. So let's look at our character. If I recall correctly, he uses a magic +2 longsword. Right? So he's not going to when he makes a melee attack, he's not going to just hit someone with a chair or a rock. He's going to use a magic longsword, and that's a very different thing. So let's change it so it says basic melee, and in parentheses we say longsword instead. Right. Still melee 1, still melee weapon, okay? So 1d20 plus our attack bonus versus AC. Well, what is our attack bonus? It looks like it's +12. So let's delete your attack bonus versus AC, +12. If the attack hits, it deals, how much damage does it deal? Look, we've already done this quick lookup, so it deals 1d8 plus 6 damage. So, let's fix that up. So it deals 1d8 plus 6 damage. Excellent. Okay, everything seems to be good. Then we save it, and then let's test it. Alright, Example Man makes a melee basic attack and rolls 18 versus AC. If the attack hit, it deals 12 damage. Everything looks good. So now, any time from here on out where we have to make a melee basic attack, we can just click this for all the melee basic attacks we could ever want to do, and it will automatically roll all these dice for us and add up the numbers correctly. When you crit, it shows a nice little green box showing that you rolled a natural 20. When you crit fail, it shows you a nice little red box indicating that you got a natural 1. But that's a separate thing. I don't feel like this guy will likely be making a lot of ranged attacks other than improvised ranged attacks. So I'll probably just leave this macro as it is. Right. So you'll notice there are two boxes here. One is that it shows in the macro bar, and the other is that it shows it as a token action. So what you want to do for all of your macros that you're going to want to use is make sure they are clicked to show as a token action. This means that when you click on your token, which is one of these little doodads that has a character picture on it, right, it will show all of the macros that you have for that character. You can't click on other people's tokens and see their stuff, but you can click on your own, and then all of your macros will appear across the top of your screen. All right. Otherwise, they won't be there. Okay, so they won't take up your screen when you're trying to look at what else is going on in the background. All right, so we need to make the rest of these macros for these powers here, at least. So, luckily, Gary has done an excellent job of setting this up. He has all of the features and the at-wills and the dailies and the encounters listed out. So let's start making them. So we need to have 11 powers. Okay, so let's add 11 new abilities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right. So these are what we are going to use for our power macros for our character example man. Okay, so let's look at this. The first power we want to do, let's say we're going to do Valiant Strike. Let's do our at-wills first, since we're going to use this very frequently. So, Valiant Strike. Gary hasn't listed any details, but that's not a problem because you have the portable D&D compendium. Okay? And so let's look up Valiant Strike. Valiant Strike is Paladin Attack 1. Right? Strength versus AC. Hit 1 weapon plus strength damage. Excellent. So what you can do is you can take your attack template, just copy the whole thing, scroll down to your new ability, paste it in, and change the name. This is Valiant Strike. Right. So the power name is Valiant Strike. Please remove the parentheses when you do this. The action class, this is an at-will. Okay. Is it an at-will? Is it an encounter power? Is it a daily? The action type is a standard action. What keywords does it have? I don't know these off the top of my head. Here are your keywords. Divine and weapon. Alright, so these are important, so please include them. Alright, the range, it says, is melee weapon. And the number of targets, 1 creature. Alright, good. We got the basic outline of it done. Alright, now it says I make a power name attack. Let's change that again to Valiant Strike. And rolls a 1d20 plus your attack bonus versus AC. Alright, so let's make sure that we enter our attack bonus in. And if we look at it for Valiant Strike, it should be the same as other things, so it is a plus 12. Make sure you don't have 2 plus signs or it will mess you up. Okay, is this against AC or is it against will, reflex, or something else? No, it's against AC. And we get a bonus equal to the number of enemies adjacent to you. Alright, so first, let's say if the attack hits, it deals, how much damage does it deal? 1 weapon plus strength. A longsword is 1d8. So our damage, if we look at our sheet again, is 1d8 plus 6. Okay. It has no damage, it's just normal weapon damage, so let's just get rid of the damage type, if any, part, and make sure we don't have too many spaces. Alright. If the attack is versus fortitude, reflex, or will, substitute that where it says AC. It's against AC, so we're just going to get rid of the parentheses. Okay, and then we can delete this line. If the attack has any special effects, list them here. Okay, no real special effects, but we do gain a bonus to the attack roll equal to the number of enemies adjacent to you. Now there are ways you can program this in, so it will automatically ask you how to gain a bonus to the attack rolls. And this is covered in the Guide to Great Macros when you're doing part 2, asking about macro props. And I will cover that in a separate video. But for now, let's just list that as a special effect. /me gains a bonus to the attack roll equal to the number of adjacent enemies. Okay. So, once we have done all this, we have to be sure that we save it. There we go. We want to make sure that it's clicked as a token action, so that we'll see it when we click on our character. And then let's test it. Testing it is the most important part of macros. I strongly recommend that every time before you do a session, you test your macros to make sure they work. Because even slight changes will make them stop working. So, it looks like I did okay on this. It says a Valiant Strike, it has all the information I put in. It says I make a Valiant Strike, I roll a 30, it's a good attack roll, and deal 10 damage. I gain a bonus to the attack roll equal to the number of adjacent enemies. Great. Alright, so there you go. You've done one of these macros. Took us a couple minutes, but it's not too bad. Once you get this set up, you'll be able to Valiant Strike as much as your heart desires. Right? And it'll be very simple to play a game or several games after you've done this setup. So you have to do this for each of your powers. And, you know, this seems like sort of a bit of a pain, but believe it or not, you can pretty much copy-paste a large amount of it. So his attack bonus is plus 12 versus AC, and his damage will be 1d8 plus 6 for almost all of his powers. So let's look at a different one. Let's look at Valorous Smite, which is an encounter power. So let's take a look at Valorous Smite. Okay. This is Charisma versus AC, but we already know that Charisma versus AC will still be plus 12, because his Charisma and Strength scores are the same. Alright. And it will do 2 weapon, divine weapon. So let's make a macro for this. Okay, let's just copy Valiant Strike, since we've done most of the hard work already. And let's do Valorous Smite. Okay. Make sure you change the name. Right. You also have to change these details below. Right. Is it an at-will power? No, this is an encounter power. It's still a standard action. Okay. Melee weapon, divine weapon keywords, target one creature. So everything else is good to go. We don't have to change any of that. Okay. We have to change the name of the power again. And your attack roll should be the same. Your hit roll, let's look at how much damage it does if it hits. Well, it does 2 weapon plus charisma damage. So instead of being 1d8 plus 6, that will be 2d8 plus 6. Easy enough. This does not apply, but doesn't have any other effects. Each enemy within 3 squares of you is subject to your divine sanction. So you can say, get rid of your exclamation point and say it deals 2d8 plus 6 damage, and each enemy within 3 is subject to his divine sanction. And there we go. That one took a lot less time to set up because we already did all the hard work. Show as token action. Test it out. I make a Valorous Smite. I roll d20 plus 12. I do 2d8 plus 6 damage, and each enemy is subject to divine sanction. There you go. This is what you do for all of your attack macros. And you do similar things for your utility macros, and you have any rolls that you need to in there. Alright, so this is just what you have to do to get set up. It's very straightforward. Alright, you do this for every single one of your abilities that you have. Okay, it takes a little bit of time to do, but once you do it, you're pretty much good to go, and you can start playing. So once you've finished doing all of your macros and you've tested all of them, the next thing you want to do is you want to contact someone who is a GM, either in the forums for the guild or in the Guild Skype chat. Right? And get in touch with them and say, hi, I've done all of my macros, everything is good to go. They will check your journal entry, make sure that everything works, make sure that everything is filled in correctly, and then they will give you a token, and then you'll be ready to play. One other thing, the last thing that you might want to do, or the first thing, depending on how you feel, is that you might want to include a picture of what you think your character looks like. So to do that, you go to Edit, and you choose a file here. So let me pick a file real fast. He's supposed to be a Dragonborn. I don't have a lot of good Dragonborn pictures. So instead, I'm going to pick this dire rat. So you just click and drag this photo here. Okay. This becomes your avatar. Right. Once you get approved, your GM, the GM who helps you out, will make a token out of this picture that you've loaded, and it will look something like one of these. Right, nice and circular. Some people prefer to do their square. And in addition, it will show up next to your name when you type something. Right. So now we see this lovely picture of the dire rat next to example. So that is all you have to do to get your journal entry set up for the Guild Living campaign on Roll20. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask either in the questions thread or in the Guild Skype chat. Alright? Alright. Good hunting, guys. I hope you enjoy playing with us. Have a good time.